So, Lindsay, I have a message for you.
Okay.
Ready for it?
I'm ready.
You are a sacred, worthy, luminous being. You are a sacred, worthy, luminous being. You are a sacred, worthy, luminous being. And you are love, and your love is forgiving. And you are love, and your love is forgiving. That's my medicine.
That's beautiful. What a gift. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm just saying something that's true.
It's truth in music.
That's easy to do. Yeah, I like singing and playing music.
Wonderful. Well, I want to welcome everyone to this shift chat. We are talking today with Mr. Tom Pinkson. A lot of people know him as Tomas. And before we came on camera here, I was saying, now how will I introduce you? So many things are encompassed in your world. A mentor, a coach, a friend, a guide, a medicine man, an author, a transformational leader. And we knew we had to turn on the camera because that introduction alone led us to start wanting to talk about the good stuff, the juicy stuff, like what is medicine and how is it that you're on this journey. So I want to welcome you. I'm super excited to be talking with you today and to be introducing you to our audience. I know they're going to be just soaking up all your love and light. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So let's dive in right there. Let's talk a little bit about that medicine piece. Your music is your medicine. Your word is your medicine. I know that you have a lot to share with us about what that means to walk in a modern world.
Well, I think what the song says, it's expressing something that's true, that we're all sacred because we're made by the creative powers of the universe, whatever you want to call that. We weren't made in a factory somewhere.
Right.
And we're worthy in our being. We don't have to earn, go out and do something and get initials after our name or write a book or do anything to deserve respect and caring and appreciation for the amazing miracle that we are in our being, a manifestation of the creative powers of the universe. Sacred, worthy, and luminous, the essence of our being. We know even from science that our bodies are made of stardust.
Yeah. And
our being, the deeper being that lives within inside of our bodies is light.
Yeah.
Even in Latin, the word in Latin for if you put our hands on our stomach, that's our solar plexus, the place of light. So the deepest level of our being is luminosity, is light. And what's the felt quality of that energy? It's love.
Yeah.
And what's the love for? Is it for manipulation? Is it for hoarding and fear that everybody got a limited amount of it? Is it to try to control people? It's forgiving.
Yeah.
So those two sentences, which I've created a bracelet that says that. I'm a sacred, worthy, luminous being.
Yes, I have mine. I love it so much. I intended to have it on camera here today, but I'll have to put a picture up for everyone to see. Thank you so much for sharing it with me.
Yeah, you're welcome. There's on my website, there's pictures of it.
Yes, yes.
The people can see that. And that's like a kinesthetic, because you can snap it. It's a visual reminder, a wake-up that when our conditioning program that most of us have in our culture, being a fault finder, negatively judging or evaluating ourselves.
Yes.
This bracelet, that song, and as a mantra, I'm a sacred, worthy, luminous being.
Yes.
I love, and my love is forgiving. It acts as a stimulus to wake up the consciousness to remember what's true. And when we put our energy into thought forms, beliefs that are true, we get stronger, we get healthier.
Yeah.
We put our energy, our attention into thought forms and beliefs and identities that aren't true, we get weaker, and the pipes get clogged up, and then healing's needed to unclog the pipes.
Healing is needed. So I know you have a lot of tools that you share with people. I'm thinking of gratitude in particular in terms of how to access that luminosity and bring our thoughts around to positivity. But before we go there, will you tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to be walking the path that you're walking?
I'll tell you briefly because I wrote a whole book about that. The book Shamanic Wisdom of the Huichol, Medicine Teachings for Modern Times.
Which I let me just interrupt and say I cannot recommend enough. This book was so moving and informative, but also activating on some level. It was like hearing your story helped me remember truth on some really fundamental human level. And it's one of those books that you will just devour, you will cry, you will feel like you found a lost friend, and a piece of yourself that may have been missing will awaken in you through this book. So I cannot recommend it enough.
Beautifully said. I'm going to hire you as my marketing guy.
I'm a fan, for sure.
Yeah, so for viewers who haven't read the book, briefly, I think my journey started when I was, 3 years old, 10 months old, when my dad died. Mm-hmm. And so at that early age, I was given, not by my choice, but by the mystery, the teaching of impermanence. Yeah. And how this power exists in the universe that we call death, that can come at any time and take people we love and doesn't require our consent or our okay to do that. Right. So that plunged me. I couldn't articulate it then at that age, the way I'm going to articulate it now, but looking back on it, I realized it plunged me into a existential question, asking the question, what, if anything, given death can come and take you whenever you want and your loved ones, what, if anything, is worth living a life on? Right. And that question in the 50s, the early 50s, was not being addressed in mainstream society. And so I became very alienated, and when I was a teenager, that alienation and the unresolved grief, because in those days they didn't know how to work with children with grief and loss, what had imploded in my early years is life-threatening illness. Now with testosterone at 13 exploded outward in terms of acting out behavior, and I was what we call a juvenile delinquent, a troubled youth, and in a gang, and involved in all kinds of serious and dangerous antisocial acting out behaviors. And by the grace of God, Goddess, and that I have white skin, I'm alive and I'm not in jail. Right. So I don't recommend that path for anybody. I call it my teenage years a shadow possession. Mm-hmm. My shadow energies were just running the show very much. Yeah. And I'm very thankful, speaking of gratitude, for protection, and I'm able to be here. Yeah. Now I work with a group of Native American prisoners at San Quentin. And the first time I walked into the prison and was with the guys for the group, and at a certain time that evening, they had to go back to their cells, and I was able to go free. Right. And I was thinking to myself, if it wasn't for gifts of grace, I could be in here. Yeah. So great gratitude. Great gratitude, yes. So what that existential quest and the alienation from mainstream society led me to, I didn't plan it out, it just kind of happened. Another gift of grace was going into non-mainstream communities, you might say, and getting involved with indigenous people who were, because of oppression and prejudice and racism and colonialism and all that kind of thing, you might say we're living closer to the bone. Yeah. Closer to the realness of life and death, and honesty about feelings, not just the surface. In the 50s, it was all about surface impression, what do I look like in possessions and my status and this kind of thing, which had no soul. So because of the loss as a child, my bullshit detectors that all children have was even stronger. And I could see I'm only interested in people who are telling the truth, people who, and their authenticity, people who are being real. I have no time for anything else, no interest. It's just hypocrisy, and it doesn't have any meaning for me. In fact, it's distasteful. Yes. So that eventually led me into, that led me into the Afro-American community. I started doing construction work when I was 14. I was one of the few white guys on the job, and when I passed their tests, I was doing the same work, so I was accepted within that community. When I came out to, I barely got out of high school, I barely went, but I knew I wanted to go to junior college, so when I just barely got out of high school, I came across the continent to California from the East Coast, and immediately found myself involved with the Latino community. Yeah. The same kind of soul that I was experiencing in the Afro-American community, the realness. Once I passed the tests, I was accepted in, and they give me their shirt off their back if that's what I needed. And that eventually led me to, in my studies, I wanted to understand why I had been acting in such a destructive and antisocial way. So I took classes in sociology and psychology and trying to understand. And in that quest for understanding, eventually, when I got out of school, I got 3 different degrees eventually, and I started a wilderness program for heroin addicts to try to help them, and that led me to being in the wilderness, and that led me to indigenous people of Turtle Island who lived in what we call the wilderness all their lives and knew how to be there in a way of respect and harmony and balance, what I call right relationship.
Yeah.
And that led me to, over the next 45 years, traveling around the world to study with indigenous people, the elders, and then come back to my culture and the challenges of my culture, try to integrate those teachings to the challenges that I was facing.
Yeah.
Making a living for a family in a way that was meaningful for me.
Right.
And that's led to all the work that I've been doing and am doing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. So tell us a little bit more about, I think you called it living the right, how did you say that? Living.
My relationship?
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit how that came to be.
Okay. Well, that came through being with indigenous people.
Yeah.
And indigenous people around the world paid attention to how nature works because they're dependent on it. So they paid attention, really, really deep concentration, receptivity to the way nature works. And they noticed the obvious, which is that we're 100% dependent on these invisible powers that we see expressed through and in nature, but those are manifestation of invisible powers. Like the most important things in life we can't see. Yeah. They're invisible, like the breath.
Yeah.
And in life, what's ultimately most important? It's love. Yeah. Feeling love, being able to love, and being in the consciousness of love.
Right.
That is, that's what truly enriches us, and it is the real gold of life. Right. So that's an inner quality. That's an inner experience. Yeah. Invisible. We can't see love. We can feel it. Right. You think about gravity. If it wasn't for gravity, we wouldn't be here. We'd float off in space somewhere. So some of the most important things that we're dependent on are invisible. Yeah. We call those forces of nature, or this, that, or the other thing. Indigenous people, excuse me, experience that as a spirit. So there's the spirit of the wind. Right. There's the spirit of the tree. There's the spirit of growth. Right now it's springtime, and so the buds are coming up, the flowers are blossoming. We could explain scientifically the rain, the sun, the photosynthesis, this, that, and the other thing. But the bottom line of growth is we cannot see what makes it actually grow. Right. The Huichol people in Mexico that I work with, that I did an 11-year apprenticeship with, they have they experience that invisible growth energy as a grandmother goddess. They call it great-grandmother growth. Okay. We can see it, but we experience it, and that comes into us. Yeah. So they recognize, bottom line, that we are 100% dependent on these invisible powers. Yeah. For them, they're spirits. They have a spiritual essence. We call them energy. Yep. Spirit. And they're constantly giving to us, 24/7. Those invisible powers are constantly giving to us. And when we're in a place, when we were growing up, your mom and your dad, somebody said, when somebody gives you something, well, say thank you, dear. So there's a memory that is still within our mainstream culture that when you're given something, you're supposed to say thank you. You're supposed to give some positive energy back. Well, in mainstream society, we've forgotten how to do that with the invisible powers. Right. With our narcissism and our alienation from nature within us and nature itself, which we're embedded in, we take things for granted. We become unconscious and therefore disrespectful about these invisible powers. Right. The indigenous people recognize that in order to have a right relationship, i.e. relationship that works, with those invisible powers, we create an imbalance, an illness, a disease, or a manifestation of imbalance. So if we're constantly receiving, which we are, and we're not taking time in a meaningful way to say, hey, thank you. Thank you, Mother Earth. Thank you, Spirit of the Rain. Thank you, Father Sun, for shining today. If we're not taking time to give back, we create imbalance. Yeah. And balance is certainly prevalent and getting worse in the world today because we just take. We take the earth, we take oil, we take this, we take that. And the underlying dynamic is, in order to live, we have to take life, even if we're a vegetarian.
Yeah.
You cannot live without taking life. So it's not, the issue isn't whether we take life or not. The issue is, do we do it consciously? Do we do it respectfully? And do we give back equal measure in some way for what we take?
Yeah.
You know, all the ceremonies and all the rituals in indigenous cultures are to give back, or to say thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And like you said, it's through gratitude for the gifts that were given in the moment and have been given all our lives that the doorway opens in our awareness to connection to Spirit. We don't have to ask or pray for Spirit's presence. It's never not here. It's just we've closed our consciousness off, our awareness of that. And gratitude is the way that opens that door again.
Yeah. So people in this tribe will know, and you know a little bit, that for me, it was kind of at my darkest hour that gratitude turned the whole picture around for me. And the very first moment that I started my gratitude practice, I'm on my 4th year now of a daily practice, the one thing I could tap into was the setting sun that day. And it was so beautiful, and it was so warm, and I thought, no matter how sick I feel and how afraid I am, there's this beautiful thing. And it started in that moment. And what was interesting is now I can track back to that moment, and that really was a pivotal turning point for me in terms of shifting awareness away from preoccupation with the self and this imbalance that I created in myself to get me reacquainted and in the practice of gratitude again. And so I talk a lot about gratitude. We in our family, we create ritual and tradition around gratitude, but I'm having this newer sense of deepening connection to gratitude in the context of not just celebrating the things that are easy to celebrate, the sunset, the incredible unseen gifts that you're describing, but also gaining awareness of how transformational it can be to truly find gratitude, and I guess by extension, unconditional love in the hard things. That every piece in our journey has been an important piece in our journey, and when we can find gratitude in it, it unlocks on some new level the gift within that challenge, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Can you share a little bit? I know you work with people on how to do this, and I've kind of stumbled upon it just by virtue of walking a gratitude path for the last few years, but could you really help us understand that process a little bit and how you guide people through that awakening around the connection between gratitude and unconditional love and blessings, and how it becomes this spiritual ecosystem?
That's a good phrase, a spiritual ecosystem. Ecosystem, everything's connected.
Yeah.
And when I came up with a term a couple of weeks ago, it came to me, most of us in Western culture, we suffer from what I call it, the wounds of duality consciousness.
Yeah.
And there's a violence in the way we perceive reality as separate objects and separate things.
Yeah.
So even today, our scientists, the quantum physicists, tell us the same thing, basically, that the spiritual traditions around the world tell us. Yeah. That in the deepest level of our being, everything's connected. Yeah. Everything's intermeshed. So in our minds, when we create separation, then that's the violent thing, separating ourselves from the essence of reality.
Right.
And that separation manifests in suffering in some way, fear, anxiety, or however. So if we're interested in healing, healing comes from joining with the truth of what is.
Right.
And so that includes the painful or difficult challenges that come up in our lives. We try to separate ourselves from them, or the feelings that come up with them, that are just creating more problems.
Yeah.
So, an example, my dad's death.
Yes.
I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Right.
And I suffered and lost as a result of that. And it took me until I was a young adult and I started to learn about consciousness to be able to come back to that experience and, number one, address the grief feelings that had never been resolved, had never been addressed.
Right.
The only way to heal that was to go into them, bring my awareness into those feelings, be with them. I wasn't, at that time, able to be thankful for it, but the road to getting to the place where I could recognize the gifts in my father's death came through what I call honoring those feelings and creating a safe container for them to be heard and expressed, so they weren't stuck in the system.
Yep.
Just like a state of constipation, taking a substance to help open that flow back up.
Right.
And the healing energies, the wisdom inside of us that knows how to heal. I don't know how to create a white blood cell in response to an infection. I have no clue, but the wisdom inside of me. Right. But if it's not being oppressed, if it's not being constricted, if it's not being stomped on, you might say.
Right.
So healing comes through joining with the truth of what is. So if I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm feeling sorry for myself, if I'm bitter, if I'm feeling guilty, if whatever it might be that's unpleasant and I wish wasn't here because it's discomforting, I don't like it, it's not pleasant. If I push it away, I deny it, I project it on someone else, it stays there in me, festering, clogging up a pipe. And if that continues long enough, it's going to manifest physically, wherever my Achilles heel is.
Right.
So the healing act starts with joining with the truth of what is, bringing awareness to it, opening to it. It's not there by accident.
Yeah.
My father's death, my back injury I don't know how many years ago, 6 years ago or something, where I was flat on my back for 6 weeks, very painful. I had to go to the emergency room with pain. But I could also see at the time when I was going through it, the gift of it, the teaching of it, and the medicine of it.
Got it.
People would come to say to me, "Oh, we're so sorry this happened to you." I didn't feel sorry for myself because I could see and I understood because I went into the pain, I went into the fear, I went into everything that was triggered by it. And it opened up a doorway of awareness of things I needed to see that had been below the level of ordinary consciousness. Yeah. And so I could make a conscious choice about what kind of relationship I wanted to be in with whatever situation it is. Yeah. So difficult situations in our life, like my father's death, can have power to change that. Yeah. You have power to make it not happen or go away. It happened. Yep. What I have power to do is to look at the relationship I've created to that fact. Yeah. For 10 years, I had a relationship with it that was constricting and created more pain and suffering. Yep. I opened that wound up to the pus of it all and allowed it to drain, be expressed, and cleaned out. I could see deeper how that was a gift, teaching me in that impermanence of life how to really value life. Absolutely. It is so precious and fragile, and we never know from one moment to the next whether we're going to have it the next breath. So therefore, be present to the person or the situation you're in, and no matter what you're experiencing, like in the back injury, open up to that in the larger context. Great Spirit is present in everyone and in everything and everywhere, all the time. Open up to what's trying to come through this pain or this suffering or this malady or symptom or whatever it is. It's not just happening by accident or because you're a bad person. It's like the mystery knocking on the other side of the invisible membrane to say, honey, you're dreaming too small. You need to take a look at something. Yes. And make a conscious decision about how you want to be in relationship with it in a way that creates more pain and suffering or a way that opens the door to transformation. Yes. I feel like there's a connection between how you're describing this, how you want to be in relationship with it, to this thing of how we tell our story. What is the relationship there between our story about ourselves and how we're in relationship to an event in our life? There's a Native American poet, I don't recall his name, but he says something to the effect of, we think the world is made up of atoms. The world is made of stories. Yeah. It's all about story, because if we really look at an experience, whatever the experience is, it's a stimuli or something. Yeah. And that stimuli, we're basically walking around all this virtual reality. Yeah. Machines, you might say. Right. Because what we see, you and I seeing each other right now in the way that we are, I mean, I see a beautiful young woman. That's what I see. Thank you. I'm not sure what you see, but that's what I see. You don't exist out there the way I'm seeing you. Right. You don't exist out here the way, you're seeing me. Right. What we know on the deeper level is we're fields of energy. Yeah. Human's energy, dancing in and out of this pattern. Yeah. The pattern sustains itself for a period of time. It's Lindsay and it's Tomas. And when it dissolves, it merges back into the infinite field of energy where the dance has always been and is going on. Right. That's the deepest level of who and what we are. And the essence of that is love. It's unconditional, infinite love. So wake up to the truth of who and what we are and live our lives the best we can to work with our shadow energies, work with the effects of our wounds, our particular brand of neuroses. Everybody has their particular brand. To recognize that needs to be addressed skillfully in right relationship, not with judgment or shame. Right. But it's not who we really are. Yeah. Who we really are is that infinite light, is that infinite love. The more we can realize and live from that place, the richer our lives are, no matter what's going on in our bodies.
Yeah. No, it's so true. So one of the things I'm interested about, you on your journey have found your way into company with and being mentored by mentors from cultures all over and elders from all over, and yet you have applied this work back to working with people here in California, but also I understand in working with children who are facing incredible health challenge. And I'm imagining that in some way they mentor us too. Through the process we learn from the children. And I'm wondering, what are some of those gifts that children who have faced life-threatening, maybe we should just start there. Tell us a little bit about your work with children and help my audience understand how you have brought this right relationship and awareness and gratitude into helping families heal through this process.
When I was getting my doctorate in psychology, I was working full time. I had 2 kids. My wife put me through college, and so she was with the kids when they were little, and I was working. I helped start, and was director of a treatment program for drug addicts, mostly heroin addicts in the early 70s. Guys coming back from Vietnam, strung out, and coming into middle-class neighborhoods. We started a treatment program, and after that, I started a wilderness program, taking addicts up to the mountains and getting them involved in mountain climbing and river running and ski touring and survival. And the Vision Quest work came out of that, with training with indigenous people. So 42 years later, I'm still once a year take people up to the Sierra for Vision Quest.
Wow.
And when I was finishing my doctoral work, the medical director of the clinic, the drug treatment clinic, I asked him, he was also in my doctoral program, I asked him, what kind of people do you think I'd be good to work with? You've seen my weaknesses and my strengths. And he totally blew my mind when he said people who were dying.
Yeah.
Which is not my plan. Never entered my mind. And then he said people who are dying are on a vision quest. They might not think of it that way.
Right.
They are.
The death within, sure.
They're looking at the deeper questions.
Yeah.
Who am I? What's been the purpose of my life? How do I feel about it?
Yeah.
What am I?
Yeah.
And he said to me, you've been taking people on a vision quest. So I'd like to ask you to think about joining. He told me he'd been working for a year or so with a small group of people who were going to be starting the first at-home hospice program in the United States. He asked me to join that group and to help him co-teach a class on death and dying at the local college. So I actually went out on the Vision Quest to ask if this was something I was supposed to do or not, because it scared the shit out of me to do it.
Right.
So I went out and basically said to Spirit, look, if you want me to do this work, I have no clue what to do about it. So I'll be willing to show up, but then it's going to be up to you to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Let's not depend on me here, because then we're in trouble.
Yeah.
It's all your show. I'm just your flunky.
Yeah.
So I started the class with him. We started the hospice. Worked with that for about a year. And it was a pretty traditional medical model. It did wonderful work. But it didn't address as much as I thought was important people's spiritual beliefs.
Yeah.
Whether they were an atheist or not, their beliefs about that which was larger than them.
Right.
And I saw the importance of those beliefs. And just about that time, I heard about another program, literally about 2 miles down the road from where our hospice office was. It was just getting started. It had a spiritual base, non-denominational spiritual base, so it wasn't trying to push religion or spirituality in any way.
Sure.
Working with children, life-threatening illness. So I said, that's curious. That feels like I want to check it out. So a friend of mine who was involved told me about this program and brought me down there to meet Jerry Jampolsky, who started it. And we met, and he invited me to join the children's group. That was the first group at the center, a group of kids. I think probably from about 5 to 15 was the age range. They all had some kind of cancer or life-threatening illness. And going into the group before, for the first time, I was very nervous and anxious because I love kids. I love playing with kids, goofing around with them. But to be in a situation where the seriousness of what was going on for these kids, I felt inadequate. What do I have to say? What do I have to offer? So I felt very nervous about it and anxious and lacked confidence that if there was anything I could do that would be helpful. And Jerry said to me, well, all you have to do is love them.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, okay, that sounds good, but it sounds a little airy-fairy. But what do I really have to do? I He said, no, that's what you have to do, just love them. So I still didn't believe him, but I went into the group anyway. And over time, what I experienced working with kids in some horrendous situations in hospitals, and many of them dying and being with them that were dying, is a deeper level of healing. And sometimes the body doesn't heal, but the deepest part of our being can heal. What I mean by that is waking up to the connection of how we're more than our bodies.
Yeah.
And how the essence of our being is love. And when bodies die, the love doesn't die. And relationships continue in that love, which is part of the infinite field. It's the essence of that infinite field.
Right.
So I would see these kids in horrendous situations that were just heartbreaking. And I would see them, I would see their courage, I would see their grace, I would see their kindness and tenderness, like one little boy that I did some visualization and hypnosis work to help him with pain when he was getting his chemotherapy. And when he went in to get the chemotherapy, I wasn't able to be at the hospital, so his mother called me on the phone and had me talk to him, take him through a visualization on the phone to go get the chemotherapy. And while the needle was put in, I was talking to him, and he was calm and relaxed. And then I hung up, things were going okay. And a couple hours later, the mother called me, and she said that a nurse had inadvertently bumped into the table that the IV system was on, and it pulled the needle out of his arm. So not only did that hurt, but then they're going to have to do it all again.
Right.
So in a situation like that, it would be very easy if that happened to me to be angry at the nurse and make her wrong and lash out at her. He did. He said, oh, that was an accident. Let's not be mad at her. That was an accident. She didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
So he was sending love to her.
Yeah.
He was in the place of knowing I am loved, my love is forgiving, even under those difficult situations.
Yeah.
So I would see, I worked with the center for 32 years with children and families and adults with life-threatening illness. And like it says in the Bible, the children shall lead them.
Yeah.
They taught me about how it is possible to be in these horrendous situations and still stay connected with the center of our being, a place of inner peace and unconditional love.
Yeah.
And that can be the connection in our awareness with that is the deepest healing that takes place. So they taught me about the power of being in horrendously challenging physical situation, painful, difficult, amputation, this, that, and the other thing. And yet to keep the heart open.
Yeah.
And remember that we're more than our bodies.
Yeah. So accessing that. We learn so much from the children. We can see that they innately carry that joy, humor, grace that you describe, this compassion. As we're getting, into our mature lives and we're wrapped up in the illusion and life, how can we re-access that connection and open-heartedness? And we certainly talked about gratitude as a tool to get there. How do you help people embark on that journey to really accessing that truth and having that inner soul healing?
I try to bring people and myself, because it's a process I'm working on every day.
Yeah.
Being present to the breath flowing into us.
Yes. Okay.
But we don't create the breath. Without it, we're not here. So that greater power, whatever you want to call it, creates the breath and gently sends it into us.
Okay.
And each time it comes in, that's literally life force energy. Take it away, we're not here.
Right.
It's literally life force energy. When the energy comes in, it asks us a question. It says, Lindsay, how do you want to use me?
Okay.
Do you want to use me to create pain and suffering? You have a right to that. It's not even that that's a bad choice. And how do you create pain and suffering? Well, I can let the thoughts run about how I'm not worthy, how I'm not a sacred worthy being, how I'm the fault finding, what the kids would call a fault finder with myself. I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I always mess it up, I don't deserve, it's negative thought forms of limitation and negativity about who and what we are.
Yeah.
Create pain and suffering.
Yeah.
And we've been conditioned, we don't learn in our culture how to be in loving relationship with ourselves. We're basically conditioned to see ourselves lacking something, and we need to do something or get something to be okay. We need to go get that right perfume,
right,
or that right hairdo, or that right
sure,
blouse, dress, and then we'll be okay.
Right.
Billions of dollars spent a year inundating our consciousness and say, you're not okay the way you are. You need to go get this or do this. then you'll be okay.
Right.
Never worse, because it never feeds the hunger in the soul. The hunger in the soul is to connect with the truth of who we are. It's not about anything in the outer plane.
Right.
So the breath comes in and it says, Lindsay, how do you want to use me? You want to use me to create pain and suffering? If so, just let those conditioned programs run. Not a problem. You don't have to work on it. It's already there.
Right.
If you want to experience something other than pain and suffering, if you want to experience opening your awareness to the always present presence of unconditional love and infinite peace and creativity and strength and courage and you name it, always here, always present.
Yeah.
If I'm not aware of it, if I'm not in touch with it, it's because of something I'm doing between my ears that is
Right.
closing awareness
Right.
to it. So I help people come into conscious presence with that breath coming in, the question, and helping them explore. In this moment, all you have, this is the only time you can experience whatever it is you want to experience.
Yep.
No guarantee of another breath after this one leaves.
Right.
Be present in the moment, make a conscious choice.
Yeah.
What do you want to experience now?
Yeah.
And if choice is in the moment to, I've had enough pain and suffering in my life, I would like to experience more joy, more happiness, more inner peace, more love.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to experience. How can I do that?
Yeah.
Well, it starts with your intention. Everything starts with your intention. So if you want to experience that more, how can you open the doorway to that experience in your consciousness? Well, you've actually already talked about it, which is gratitude.
Yeah.
Take a moment and listen, go inside yourself in this moment and listen to what, if anything, are you truly thankful for about your life right now. So I'm inviting people into a reflection process.
Nice.
And my experience in working with people is they drop in deep enough with support, they get to something, even if they're in the midst of suffering, they've got a week left to live because of a brain tumor, it's this or that, whatever. There's always something that when people drop in deep enough, they get in touch with that they are thankful.
Yeah.
And so I ask them, well, what do you believe in? What's the source? What's your sense of the source of where that which you're thankful for comes from? What's the ultimate source that comes from?
Yeah.
That starts to open them up to larger than ego consciousness awareness, and all of a sudden the doorway's open to an awareness of, whoa, there's more going on here than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
No matter what the suffering of my physical body or emotional body is, in that connection with moreness, there's peace, there's healing, there's light, there's love, because that's who I am.
Yeah.
So it's through that kind of a process. Conscious presence in the moment to the breath, being present to answer the question.
Yeah.
What do you want to experience right now?
Yeah.
And no matter what's happening, ultimately, it's not the event, but it's the story you're telling yourself about it that's creating your experience. So it all comes back to story.
Story.
Pain, we hold on it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's our experience. And that's empowering because we're alive, even if the last moment before we're dying physically, if we're alive and present with our consciousness, we can make a choice in that moment about how to be in relationship to the experience that either shuts us down in fear or guilt or shame or anger or pity or whatever, or opens us up to the presence of infinite
being. So this has been amazing. One of the things that we like to conclude with in this shift series is helping people distill all that into one, we call them core routines, but one core practice that a person could do if they don't have support or if they don't have a mentor or a guide like you. If they're just themselves in their day, what is one thing that any person could do, and when even maybe in the daytime, and how can they do this one thing to access that gratitude or that awareness to get into their space of breath? I know you have some morning routines, and I just would love for you to share one thing that you would recommend for a person if they're out there watching this that could get them started on this journey to connecting.
Well, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, even before I get out of bed, and I'm aware that I'm awake, I know that not everyone went to sleep that night before wakes up. So the fact that I'm suddenly aware that I'm awake, already I've been given life.
Yeah.
So I just start with a gratitude practice. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this breath. Thank you for whatever in the moment it is that I'm thankful for.
Wonderful.
And then when I get up, I go do the bathroom stuff and clean and wash and this, that, and the other thing. And then I go connect. I go to the east and I face the east, and there's this miracle has happened.
Yeah.
The sun has come up, whether it's raining or cold or snowing, it's still come up. It's significantly different than nighttime.
Yeah.
So there's light. There's this light pouring out of the eastern corridor. I might have to work harder in my awareness to see it or open to it through a cloud or rain or whatever, but it's there.
Yeah.
I give thanks for that. Thank you, Father, Son, for shining today, bringing the life force to Mother Earth.
Yes.
And I bring my awareness down to the earth. I'm standing on thanking Mother Earth for the gifts of food and drink and clothing and shelter and your beauty and your teachings about harmony and balance. I go to above, thank you to whatever it is, the cloud, the rainbow, the rain, the sun, whatever, which also reminds me of ancestors. I wouldn't be here without my ancestors. Thank you, ancestors. I bring it down into my body. Thank you for it. And whatever it is I'm thankful for, and I go to each direction, because each direction has a different gift.
Yes.
That process, I'm centering myself, I'm grounding myself in gratitude, in appreciation, and I'm also empowering myself, because by giving thanks to those invisible powers in each direction, I've opened myself, because I can't give the love if it's closed in my heart. I have to open. It's kind of like I have to open the door and then send it out, like when you're watering, the place in the garden.
Yeah.
So in that opening to give,
yeah,
I instantaneously receive. I don't have to ask for it. It's in the giving that I receive. That's the basis of right relationship.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for being here today. I'm going to, of course, have your Q&A below on the page, and your website's there. So I really encourage you to go find Tom Pinkson online at his website. You can also find his more shamanic website, and I'll also link that below. Also on Amazon, pick up these books. These books literally not only entertaining and wonderful to read, but truly activating and transformational. And I have so much gratitude for you for taking that call from God or from Spirit or from Universe and letting that flow through you and sharing your stories in the form of these books. They've been huge in my life, and I'm so excited to be sharing them with all of our tribe.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for being here. Also, go get your Luminosity bracelet. I'll be sharing pictures of me and mine as well. Sure. And I would love to invite you back sometime. I feel that we could just talk for hours, and I'd love to dive deep into gratitude practice and awareness practice. I'd love to take a sneak peek into how you work with people one-on-one. There's so many questions I have, so I would love to talk again if you're open to it.
I'm absolutely 100% open. I'm already looking forward to it.
Sounds wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an honor.
My pleasure.
Take care. Bye-bye.